All right. Monday night, and we are back again. I am still on the road, as you can tell. It's not my normal background. We are down here in Miami now, left Orlando, and got a couple events over the next 3-4 days here. Got a dinner here tomorrow, got a couple client meetings here tomorrow, and then up to Atlanta, Georgia, over here on the East Coast for our event for the Mastermind, which will be Thursday this week. So if you're on the East Coast and you want to come hang out with cool people and get to know some of the community there, I think we still have like 50, 60 spots left for that event, which is a little unusual. I don't know if there's just not as many people over here on the East Coast, or not as many people like Atlanta, or what's going on.
It's too hot.
Or yeah, maybe it's just too hot for people, which is also highly probable. So, but if you are part of the Mastermind and you are out this way, we would love to have you over there at the event Thursday night. And all the information around that event is shared in the Mastermind. So if that sounds cool to you, if you wanted to come check it out, see what, we do more in real life events than any other crypto community, maybe besides Crypto Mondays. Board Ape Yacht Club used to do a good number of them, but they, kind of slowed down on that now too. So would love to have you out there. All you got to do is go over and join the Mastermind if you're not part of it at beyondbroke.com. Till's posted over here in the chat on TikTok, and you guys have it across the top here if you are on YouTube, Facebook, or on X. So have some really cool news for you guys tonight. We'll touch on the macro and where things are at, and then we'll get into the fun news, the fun announcement that I told you guys we would have this week on Monday, and then we can get into some questions around that. I'm sure people will have them. Probably going to hang out, I don't know, maybe about an hour and 15, hour and 30 minutes tonight. Probably won't go the full 2 hours just because I am in a hotel, and I'm probably a little louder than some of the other people that are trying to sleep would like me to be. So on the macro side, where are we at? Well, the Korean stock market is down 8%, limit down almost off the rip. The Nikkei is down 4% already on the day. They're down 10% on the month. There's been a lot of posturing from the Bank of Japan that they are not going to raise interest rates at this meeting. We even had Citadel coming out saying that they believe that Warsh is going to be raising interest rates here in the U.S. I don't believe either one of those things. I think that there's way too much pressure on the yen at this point. We have seen a small dip in the market right now, a small pullback. I don't know exactly what's causing that. If I had to guess, it would be, just a broader market pull down. Oil also down, off of the news that there may be some negotiations going on. Yeah, we've heard that plenty of times. My concern is the global reserve level for oil at this point is so low across the board, pretty much every country. Yeah, here in the U.S., we are at the same level that we were in 1983, which is very low in comparison to how much we actually need today versus then. So my concern, and this would be a big problem for the rest of the world, is if Trump decided that we were no longer going to be exporting oil to other nations. If we decided that we were just going to keep that here domestic, it was going to cause some pretty big issues. Thank you, my wonderful wife. No tea tonight, but I do have water, and she's hearing me cough, so I appreciate her. Yen at 163, almost 164. Oil, hanging out around 15,000 yen per barrel. And then we've got the bond yields over there continue to just kind of trend sideways around 2.8 on the 10-year, and the other one's kind of holding steady as well. Bond yields here in the U.S. are rising. So we'll have to see if they are going to lower interest rates. I do anticipate that they will, but if we lower or Japan raises, either one, we're going to see the reverse carry trade unwind at scale. And I think they're going to time this deal. We are past the statutory, 1 year annual limit for the OCC, the Fed, the Treasury, and FDIC issuing their guidance around stablecoins. So I do expect them to come out with that here in short order. That goes into full effect 120 days after they issue their guidance, or if they don't issue guidance in time, it would be January 18th of 2027 would be when that would go into effect fully. So banks and institutions, until they have that guidance, aren't going to really dive in the deep end on stablecoin issuance and drive demand for treasuries here domestically. I'm sure if you've tuned in before, you've heard my whole spiel on the domino theory and how all this plays out, and how it cascades to a moment when we're going to see significant price appreciation for XRP. There was some comments that came out of the Bank of Japan over the last week here that they would utilize digital assets to restructure their debt, which I found very compelling for the adoption of XRP. We know that SBI and Yoshitaka Kitao, who's the principal there, has advocated for the implementation of XRP and the XRPL in their banking system and as their payment rail for 5-10 years at this point. They are a significant holder in Ripple and the equity there, also in R3. And so, and he used to be the prime minister previously to, I don't know if it was 2 prime ministers ago or just 1 prime minister ago, whichever one was killed, unfortunately. He was the financial arm or on the cabinet as the financial advisor to the prime minister during that period of time. Yoshitaka Kitao was. So lots of things moving here. We got a couple exchanges closing their doors, both BitMEX and Bitmart shutting down in the next 30 days. I think that that's just a symptom of where the market's at. You've also seen Uphold reduce their staff globally by 17%. Coinbase, Block, Gemini, you name it. Many of the large exchanges and other counterparties out there that you guys may know and have dealt with in the past are lowering their headcount just because I don't think they're quite as profitable during the bear market, and they need to trim some cost. A lot of them will say they're implementing AI, and maybe that's true to some certain extent. But I think it's more of a symptom of just where we're at in the market. Bitcoin continues down. I think last time I looked, we were at 63,000. XRP is at $1.05. Tinfoil hat for a second, if y'all want to go there. David Schwartz posted about his Ethereum experience. And he had invested in Ethereum early on. He had 40,000 ETH. He ended up selling that at $1.05. It had bounced around, he said, somewhere between 70 cents and $1 for a period of time, and he ended up selling at $1.05. And before he knew it, it was at $12. And then he thought it would pull back, and then it went to 2,000. So I don't know if that is foreshadowing for what XRP will do. If we do see a run up here, I do think a lot of people would jump off at the $10, $12 mark. Probably exit their positions anticipating, a bear market or some other issues. Never go broke taking profits. We talk about that all the time, and that's probably a good time for my disclaimer. Nothing here is financial advice. It's only for entertainment and educational purposes. You should always speak with a CPA, an attorney, or a financial advisor before making any tax, legal, or financial decisions. Any opinions I share are my opinions, and they are not the opinions of Digital Ascension Group or any of its subsidiaries. So that is where the macro is. Everything's still lined up, ready to go whenever they're ready to pull the trigger. I do think the Trump card, literally, is Trump deciding that we are not going to export oil to the rest of the world, and we will see significantly higher energy costs, and countries have to raise interest rates in order to be able to combat the inflation and protect their currencies, which will then, completely reset global markets. So on the DAG front, you guys know that we have consolidated the brand. We've done the full rebrand. If you want to go check it out, it's at dag.com. That's a 3-letter domain, which is pretty cool. And the new website looks great. They're going to continue to add pages and other things over there, but we've consolidated all the services that we provide through the website. And I've got a really cool thing to announce tonight for you guys, which is we finally have a yield product. It is not live yet. It is coming. The go live on this will be September 1st. And we're targeting somewhere between 3 and 5% on this. So, there's a few others out there that do that in DeFi. Doppler, is a good choice for many people that are international. They pool the XRP and then they trade that in a strategy, and that's their DeFi. We will not be pooling the XRP. This is completely revolutionary. This has never been done before. These are separately managed accounts, or SMAs. This is very commonplace in traditional finance, where your assets are held segregated away from other people, and then they're leveraged or lent or done something with them in order to be able to generate a return for you. That's what we're doing here. We're working with Anchorage. They're willing to issue a line of credit against the assets held in the separately managed accounts. The sub accounting will, you'll get your dividend to your account. These will be monthly dividends that are paid out. These are people, have asked about the lockup period. It's going to be at least 30 days, right? So, monthly redemptions, monthly subscriptions, and monthly payouts as the way we're going to structure it. There's still some things up in the air around who's going to qualify for this, what the actual fees will look like for participating. But as we finalize those pieces, we will bring those to you guys. Again, launching this September 1st, so we have a little bit of time to get through all of that. But it will be only available to DAG clients. The first strategy that we're launching with is an institutional strategy. You would normally have to have $25 or $50 million in order to be able to approach this counterparty in order to participate in their strategy. They have extremely strong returns. We're targeting just 3 to 5%. They have, outperformed that with a separate custodian over the past 12 months. Again, we'll be able to share, all of this information. If you are a client of DAG Wealth, you can talk to your advisor, make sure that you're suitable for the product. This is the first of many that we will be rolling out for the rest of the year. So the big vision, you guys have known for a while that we've been working on a yield product. It's been the bane of my existence for the past 9 months, really. The reason it's taken so long is we wanted this done a very specific way. It had never been done in crypto. Everybody else operates through pooled vehicles, right? So they want you to participate in a fund, which we've done that, right? We had to get something to market, work with counterparties, develop relationships, build credibility in the space. And we've done that. And because of that credibility that we've built with different counterparties, we've now been able to structure this the way that we want to get it done, which is separately managed accounts. Your assets are held there at Anchorage. They don't move. They stay in your account. They are locked for whatever period you're going to be subscribing to the products that we're going to be, rolling out. There is a normal redemption process. You'll have to, tell your advisor that you want to pull it out and rebalance. Most advisors, if you're meeting with them, you're meeting them on a quarterly basis. And what that's going to allow you to do is, as we add to the breadth of products and services we have, you'll be able to diversify across those to be able to meet your income needs and whatever other goals you're setting with your advisor. So really, really excited to finally get this to market. It has been a beating, but we are rolling that out, and then we will continue to roll out products for the rest of the year alongside this. This streamlines our ability to be able to do that. There's many managers that we've talked to and wanted to work with, and the unlock here is Anchorage, being kind enough to work with us in this capacity, and we are their first of any wealth management client that they have in order to be able to get access to this, and we've advocated for it for a long time. So shout out to Anchorage, shout out to all the partners, shout out to our team. Our team worked diligently over the weekend in order to be able to get me the talking points to actually come out here and speak about this with you guys. So, I just feel super blessed and grateful to have the team that we do and the clients that we have. And again, none of this is possible without you guys. If you didn't want your assets held safely in institutional custody, being able to generate, cash flow for you, nobody would want the product. There'd be no need for it in the market. But because of you guys, we've been able to get this across the line, and we'll have it, rolled out here in September for you. So this is going to be available to clients, like I said, kind of a first come, first serve. You do need to have an LLC set up. You need to have, or a trust. Either one of those is going to put you kind of at the front of the line. We will expand it to our entire client base as they expand our line of credit there at Anchorage. As you know, institutions move slowly through things. We've seen that with the adoption of crypto as a whole, and how all this technology could be used. And like, we see the promise of it. And that's why a lot of us have invested in certain assets. And it's just been kind of a slow bleed because they need to trial it. They need to check it. They need to mitigate risk. They need to make sure it works with compliance. There's so many things that have to be done in order for this to work the right way. And then they want to slow roll it. And that's kind of how this is going to be too, because it is a first in class product. The line of credit that we're getting is a little bit less than I would like it to be. I think it will continue to move up over time as we prove the process and how this works. And again, define fees and other stuff as we go. But really excited to be able to bring it to you. So if you've been holding back, and I do want to say this is not to cause FOMO or incite people to come work with this or any of that. I'm just genuinely excited about the product. If you have been, holding back or waiting to set things up or have the conversation with your advisor or move assets over, this might be a good time to start looking at that, right? This person said, are you still optimistic? I am extremely optimistic about where things are at and us being able to roll this out at, pretty close to the bottom of the market. So there's a lot of things indicating that we are at the bottom of the market here. Shout out to Blockchain Backer for all of the TA that he's been doing. Many other people coming up with, points out there in the market about sentiment, on-chain losses, exchanges going bankrupt. They're not going bankrupt, but going out of business. There's just a lot of markers that show that this is probably the bottom of the bear market. You do need 50,000 XRP. Or at least $500,000 in total portfolio value. That can include your traditional assets and your crypto in order to work with DAG Wealth. And if you just want to talk to one of our advisors, they will do that as well. You just go over there to dag.com, go to the wealth section, drop down, book a consult, and then our team over there will be happy to meet with you.
I have a super chat question.
The tea lady has a question. Let's see.
Is there what's the minimum investment for the new product, or is that established yet?
So she's asked, what is the minimum investment for the new product? We don't have that yet. We are working through all of those things.
I'm glad I didn't
it's a good question. It was a good question. Just with, again, like there's a few points that we're still having to work through. I had to kind of fight tooth and nail to be able to announce this today without, full clarity on all these points, because I know people are going to have questions. And I want to be able to provide you guys with all the answers at one time as we work through these things. And I have clarity on that. Happy to bring it back out to you. But, and so if there are some questions tonight and I'm like, we're not quite there yet, that's why. But, we've been working on this diligently for the better part of a year, to be honest with you. And to finally have it, this close to across the line and know that we're going to be able to launch something, I wanted to get it out to you guys so that you would know that we're not full of it. Because I've felt, I don't want to say embarrassed, but just, I get it. People are like, you keep saying these things and then nothing happens. It's not for a lack of effort or, us trying or pushing or doing all the things that we're doing. It's literally just market infrastructure and compliance. We've had this in the back of our mind, how we've wanted it done for a long time. And now it's a reality and we will be able to make it work. So pumped about it. So that's the announcement. We'll get into the questions here. Again, appreciate you taking time out of your Monday to come hang out and ask great questions here on live. I do have a couple super chats from last week that we did miss that I'm going to grab first, and then we'll jump into the ones from tonight.
I think it's just the one.
Let's see here. This person says, I've tried for 10 minutes typing post following during the live, blah, blah, blah. Here it is, Mr. Legend. He's part of the mastermind, has his LLC, DWP client. Query on AI centers. Texas has some 540 planned in the coming years, yet there is strong pushback on water and power usage. Kevin O'Leary is getting huge pushback on his Stratos project in Utah, as there are many centers across the US worldwide. He says, I'm in Ireland. Activists set aflame data towers. Yikes. I'm pro/con. AI centers are needed, but also they need to be good corporate citizens. Where's the right answer? I like Elon's geosync orbit plan, but that will take time. Do we have an interim? That's actually a really interesting question. One of the things that we're going to be focused on, I think probably the largest opportunity post PA is going to be data centers. It takes a lot of money in order to be able to build those out. I think that the cost of that will come down over time. But you've seen how much money Anthropic and all of these other large AI companies have raised in order to be able to build the infrastructure in order to be able to sustain their growth. There's money there for sure. But to your point, you want to do it in a way that is symbiotic with wherever that is being set up. So is that going to be through nuclear power? Is it going to be through some other means of generating the electricity? Is it going to affect the water table and people's ability to grow crops or do other things with the water in their area? All those things definitely need to be taken into consideration when they're setting these things up. And if they aren't, it could be, you get follow-on effects of this that you didn't really plan on having. You just, got to market and accomplish your short-term need, but there are other implications down the road for the broader community in those areas where those data centers are. There's, other things like nuclear power plants and other things that have been set up that have caused horrible diseases and other things for people that have lived close by. I'm not saying that data centers do that. I'm just saying you don't always know the effects of what something is going to have after you've put it in until it's there for a while. So, them being in space, underwater, there's some liquid that they've developed that does not conduct electricity that these things can be submerged in order to be able to reduce the cost of energy or cooling. It could be somebody that develops something that you can mix with water in order to be able to recycle it in these data centers so that it's not having to continually pool off the water table. So I think the technology will continue to advance. I think that people will come up with innovative solutions. And if you're looking at investing in that sector, you may want to look at second or third order effects of things around data centers that will, reduce costs for production of the data center itself, and then also the ongoing costs of running them. And investing in those things may end up playing out, as well or maybe even better than investing in data centers themselves. We have a really cool deal going on in the mastermind right now that I can't talk about publicly. If you want to learn more about that, you can go check it out by joining the group and being in Carbon 1 or higher. So that's where we're at on the data center deal. I've got one more super chat, and then we'll jump into the ones from tonight.
I think that's the same one.
Oh, it is the same guy. Okay, cool. All right. Well, I'm sure that I missed others on Wednesday night, and I apologize for that. If I did miss your super chat, as always, just email it over to our team. It is info@dag.com. No, this is not pre-recorded. Everybody always asks if it's live or if it's pre-recorded and scripted. I get on here and answer things candidly. I don't know if that's for better or for worse. I will say some of this stuff will change, post price appreciation. I will have to be a little bit more buttoned up and institutional. You don't see Brad Garlinghouse or Larry Fink or other people coming on here and doing YouTube lives or TikTok lives. Just not something they do. So I don't know what that's going to look like. I would love to continue operating in the capacity that I have for the last 3 years. But I know that some things will change. So we'll keep you guys updated as that happens. All right, we'll jump into the super chat. Weird Kids TV. Well, before we do that, because I always forget to say it, if you are getting value here, if you do like these, it is very much appreciated if you would like, subscribe, share, hit the hype button if you're over here on YouTube. It does make a difference for the algorithm and the reach for the channel. And, if you feel so inclined, sharing it with other people doesn't hurt either. So thank you all for all the support.
Hey, can you lock the camera on the phone?
Wipe the camera on the phone.
Clean it. Does that help or make it worse?
I don't know. I think it's just.
It's better.
Okay. All right. Well, glad that worked. Weird Kids TV says, Jake, you say July reverse carry trade, then August. Already a bunch of sources that have been very accurate saying Bank of Japan won't raise rates till December or the start of 27. Thoughts? So here's the deal with that. If they come out and tell you that they're going to raise rates, what do you think would happen? I'll give you a second to think about it. People would front run it. People would sell. People would try to maneuver and get out of the way before it was a problem. So there's not going to be a time when the Bank of Japan comes out and says they're going to raise interest rates aggressively. They might posture and say things, and then they'll, kind of back down and say that they're not going to. That is to keep market stability. If they were to come out and say otherwise, you would see pandemonium ensue very quickly. So, the people that know are in the know, and the people that don't. I speculate. I'm not one in the know. I don't control the Bank of Japan. I'm not an insider there. There is an account over there on Twitter that says that they're an insider. I don't know if that's the case or not. Yuto, Y-U-T-O, I think is that account. And he's talked about, Japan repatriating their assets, raising interest rates, protecting the yen, and causing significant problems with the rest of the global markets, which is exactly what I talk about. So if that account is correct and they are really an insider, then I would lend that a little more credibility than what they're going to say publicly, because again, their job is stability in markets. So I would just take it with a grain of salt. Could it take longer than I think? Sure, it already has, to be honest with you. So it is an inevitability. There's not another way out of this deal. And the only way that they're going to be able to restructure the debt is exactly how they talked about it from the prime minister. I guess it was Monday, their time, Sunday night, our time. He came out and talked through, where they are and their inflation, and they're going to have to act. They need to do it now, and they need to utilize digital assets in order to be able to restructure their debt. Silver Doman, Silverado Man. Sorry. He says, if U.S. raise interest rates, what does that do for the reverse carry trade? They're going to have to raise interest rates too. That's why we've held for so long, and they've held for so long, and then we kind of inched up, and then they kind of inched up. Any drastic move, so we'll play it out for you. Let's say we do raise interest rates. They're going to have their monetary policy meeting first. They always have theirs a couple days before we have ours. So we kind of see what they're going to do in order to be able to make our adjustments. If we raise interest rates, that's going to strengthen our currency against their currency. Their currency is already weakening against the dollar. It would become untenable for them to service debt and do other things. If we raise interest rates and raise our value of our currency versus theirs, it puts them in an even worse position and causes them to have to raise interest rates. If we lower interest rates on our side, that could work. That could kick it a little bit further if we were to decide to do that, because that would weaken our currency against theirs. But it would also lower our bond yields, and it would reduce the spread between their bonds and our bonds, and people would start to rotate out of U.S. treasuries into their bonds and sell off our treasuries, which would push our treasury rates higher. So they're in a catch-22. It really doesn't matter a whole lot like which direction they go at this point. They're backed into a corner. They can't print more money. They can't move interest rates. The only thing that they can do is adopt this new technology in order to be able to affect the velocity of money. That gives them a third lever. Right now, they only have two levers, and both of them are stuck. They can't go either direction with those levers. They have to introduce a third lever, which raises the velocity of money. And then they have some wiggle room on the other two where they can change some things. But the only way we're going to get there is to pull the leverage out of the system. So I think they're going to be as controlled as they can be with this deal. And that's why I think that the timing matters so much. And we haven't seen anything move. They got to make sure that all of these pieces and dominoes are in place in order for this to move as smooth as it can into this new paradigm. Jeff Cardinal, he says, my family and I are dreaming about buying a giant RV and traveling all over America. Very cool. Would you rather a boat cruiser, RV camping, a boat cruise, RV camping, or flying off somewhere? I've never been RVing. I think if you like long car rides with your family, sure. You know, that's not my idea of a great time. I've been on lots of those in my lifetime with my family, and tend to be at each other's throats pretty quickly in a confined space for an extended period of time. So I don't think I would enjoy that, but other people do for sure. A lot of people, after their kids go off to college and it's just them and their spouse, and I'd probably be okay with that. But if my child's with me, I love him to death, but I would have a hard time being in a confined space with him for that extended period of time, especially if he didn't have electronics or something to keep him occupied. We like boat cruises. We've been on lots of cruises. I would say if you do have little ones, we really enjoyed the Disney cruise. They have like a whole area for the kids to do crafts and arts and like play with other little kids and do cool stuff. And the parents can kind of go do what they want to do on the boat. Highly recommend. We've been on Carnival and a few others. I had a professor. They didn't have any children. He did very well, invested in Apple stock and Amazon early on. And him and his wife traveled the world 3 times over on cruises. So they really enjoyed that. And then flying off somewhere, I'm into that. I like traveling and seeing new places and experiencing new things. I like going outside the US and just getting different perspective on stuff. When we were in Orlando last week, people were talking about, the portion size in Europe versus what it is here in the US. They were talking about, warm running water and AC units and all these other things that I don't know. I don't want to say I take for granted. I feel very blessed and I try to be grateful for everything that I have in my life. But like, just to see the technological advancements that we're kind of used to having here that aren't prevalent throughout the rest of the world, it just gives you perspective, which I think is really valuable. If you've grown up here and you haven't been anywhere else in the world, in order to be able to see the differences in culture and the amenities that certain portions of the world have versus others, there are a lot of problems with the U.S. just like any other country, but I would say the standard of living here is really, really good in comparison to some of the other places globally. Now, there are others that I would say are a step above the U.S., but that's kind of few and far between. So anyway, I'm out on the RV, definitely do the boat cruise, and definitely fly off somewhere. All right. Appreciate you. Good to see you again. They say, legend, could it be that the carry trade starts on 8/3 on Black Monday, Thursday 8/6 BlackRock raises? This person always throws dates out here on stuff. Like, you guys know I'm not good with dates at this point. I'm not a date person. My attorneys have strictly said, do not say dates on here unless there is something to back it, like when they were supposed to roll out the OCC guidance or when, they've been voting on the Clarity Act. And we'll touch on the Clarity Act real quick. I don't see how this gets passed. I really don't. I'm still cautiously optimistic because I really would like to see it happen. I think you're seeing a lot of people posturing and saying that they want it to happen when in reality, I don't think they quite care as much. The House is already on recess. They're not going to be back until 9/14. Trump could mandate that Congress stays in session and doesn't go to recess. He can't force them to pass the bills, but he could invoke something that removes their recess and they have to continue to stay here and vote on the SAVE Act and the Clarity Act until, they've at least voted on it. I don't know that he's going to do that, being this close to midterms. There's just a lot of when you're in politics, you kind of have, I don't want to say placate people, but there's just a lot of different constraints that you have to consider when you're making decisions. And as things sit, they've pushed this new bill for sanctions on Russia to the forefront. So clarity is not going to get voted on till 8/8 or later at this point, which really leaves like 1 week for them to get through the filibuster and take it to a full Senate vote, if they can get past all the ethics stuff with Trump and his family and the crypto involvement that they've had. Trump says he's not going to sign anything until the SAVE Act has been passed, and that's been pushed into law. They vetoed, they went against the deal where Congress could no longer trade stocks, which was interesting to see the Democrats, vote that way on that deal, but then also persecute Trump for making a bunch of money in crypto. Just interesting, seems a little bit hypocritical to me. So I don't know. The answer is, nobody knows. I'm just looking, if you based it on the odds, highly unlikely that it's going to get through before midterms with the way things currently sit. Now, I've said before, if there is a catalyst that requires them to get things across the line, we've seen Congress come together and get things done in a short period in order to be able to move the ball when they absolutely have to. If that circumstance plays out, sure. And that's my, little bit of wiggle room that I'm giving this. I'm still 90+% that it's not getting past, before midterms. And I'm also still extremely confident that XRP appreciates before the Clarity Act gets passed. All right. Scrolling on down here in the chat. Again, appreciate you all taking time out to come listen in. And for those that listen back to this later on, I don't ever talk to you guys as much because, I'm always talking to the people that are on the line, but there are a lot of people that watch this later on. It is much appreciated that you take the time out of your schedule to, listen to what I have to say. Kenny, big long name, McNeil, he says, no, question mark. Just sitting on the porch here in Southern Illinois, full moon, looked up through the hole in the trees, and all I seen was an X. I mean, that sounds like a good night, man. I'm hopeful maybe tonight, something were to take place. We are down in the Nikkei and on the Korean stock market. That tends to be a precursor for when I think all this is going to unwind. That was the circumstance that played out in August of 24 when all this, started to unwind, and we saw 13% down in the S&P in one day. And then they paused, rates across the board, and then, held for an extended period of time and said as long as there was market volatility, they wouldn't raise anymore. They're at the point of breaking. They're going to have to raise interest rates there in Japan in order to be able to save their currency. A lot of people think Besant, has them under their thumb, and that's not going to happen. I don't think the people that are in these positions really get the final say-so on stuff. I think there's some higher powers that might get the final say-so, and I think they're the one that's going to make the call, and it's not going to be us or them. David says, stay strong in your faith, brother. How long can Japan continue to kick the can before their economy collapses? God protect you. Thank you for the kind words and the prayers, brother. It really does mean a lot. So thank you. As far as Japan kicking the can, they've got their monetary policy meeting this week. I didn't think they were going to be able to limp it to this week, and they have. So I'm watching that very closely. Their meeting is on the 29th. Our meeting, for the FOMC follows that shortly after. And I think ours is the 30th and the 31st. So we will get to see what they're going to do before we implement what we're going to do. A lot of speculation in the market that, Japan's going to maintain rates and we're going to raise. If we do that again, like I said, that we're going to strengthen our currency against theirs, and it puts them in a position where they don't have any choice. They will have to raise. So I think they're going to front run us. I wouldn't be surprised to see them raise rates aggressively at the meeting this week. Young Slim says, will Trump cancel Senate recess to get the Clarity Act and SAVE Act passed XRP dropping. Can we still get mass adoption without Clarity Act? DIMs are impossible to please. I think so. I'm highly confident again that XRP appreciates prior to the Clarity Act getting passed. I've caught a lot of flack for that. Everybody else thinks that it's going to be on the other side of price appreciation will be on the other side of legislation. They're not going to announce this. Okay, they're going to roll it out. They're going to use it. They're going to use it to save the day when there's a problem, and then they're going to paper it up after. In my opinion, again, just my opinion based on what I'm seeing in the market. So, again, there's a lot of constraints around him doing that with midterms on the horizon here. Have to see how that plays out. I don't anticipate him doing that. And like I've said before, so here's the whole deal. If they change the Clarity Act, so it's already made it through the House once. Okay, so if they let it go as is and they don't change anything in the bill and they pass it through the Senate, it could go straight to the president's desk. We've seen that that's not going to happen at this point. They've come back with multiple iterations here in the Senate. The bill that's going to get passed, if it is passed in the Senate, is going to be different than the one that was passed a year ago in the House. So they got to get through the filibuster. They got to get enough votes on that. They got to take it to a full Senate vote at the floor. It's got to get past that. Then it goes back to the House. The House doesn't come back until 9/14 unless, like you said, Trump somehow decides that that's the best choice and pulls everybody back in. And then the House has to vote. And then after the House votes, it would go to the president's desk. If he isn't going to sign anything until the SAVE Act is passed, there's like a veto period, basically, that if that amount of time passes, even if he doesn't sign it, it would go into law. So, there's all these contingencies built into the system that we have just in case certain things take place. And so, there's a little wiggle room there. Like I said, that's why I'm not 100% sure that it's not going to pass, but I'm 90+% sure that it is very unlikely that this is going to get done before midterms. The Jake Star, is crypto Ari correct or not? I think Ari, I don't know anymore. I know she used to think that XRP was going to significantly higher prices. I haven't looked at her stuff in a long time, if I'm being honest with you. So I don't know exactly what your question is about her being correct about or not. So I'm not going to speculate on that. But if you want to give me more context, then I'll touch on it. This person says, what do you recommend for a 26-year-old man with the amount you require to access your custody services? How expensive are your services annually? Do you work with clients in Europe? We do work with clients in Europe. We would love to work with you. Congratulations on being the age that you are and putting yourself in a good position, or at least what I think is a good position. I can't tell you what you should do with your money. Okay, so depending on the level of service that we provide, we do a lot of corporate structuring and trust structuring here in the US. That wouldn't be necessarily applicable for you because you're in Europe. I would work with somebody there in whatever locale in Europe that you would like to set things up in order to do that. We've seen a lot of people use Cyprus, not as many people using Portugal anymore. People use Isle of Man or Jordan or Switzerland or Nevis over there on the southern tip of Spain. So, any one of those jurisdictions is a good tax jurisdiction. We've seen people do Monaco and what's the other one? There's one more over there. Anyway, I would set something up, structure it the right way in a tax beneficial jurisdiction there in the EU. On the wealth management side, or you can work with this as an individual. Also, if you're international, we do take on individual accounts. And you still get to set up beneficiaries and do all the stuff. We set you up for the benefit of account at Anchorage underneath our instance. So, it's still your assets inside a wallet that you own. We just custody it for you, and we're a countersigner on there. We provide advisory. If you tell us you want to pull your assets out, we say, okay. We verify that it's you through a couple different means. We have security parameters around there. It is a 24-hour SLA to take your assets out. So not quite like moving a cold wallet to cold wallet, but that's also a good thing. You want some friction there in case somebody's a bad actor and they're trying to, they've hacked some of your stuff. We have 24 hours to figure that out and make sure that your assets don't go somewhere they're not supposed to. And then as far as costs go, we charge a 2% AUM fee. So annually, that's amortized, monthly over that period. If you are less than 5 million in assets with us, if you have over 5 million, that drops to 50 basis points or half of 1%. And then if you're over 10 million, then we drop that down to 40 basis points or 40% of 1%. And again, that's a monthly fee that comes out. That's why we're doing monthly on the new product that we're rolling out. You'll be able to cover your fees. At least that's the whole goal with what we're doing. The first strategy that we are rolling out is a little bit higher risk. And again, so because of that, I don't know that everybody is a good fit for this product right off the rip. We do plan to make it available, across the board to every one of our clients through the SMA structure. But your advisor will be able to work with you to decide if this is a good fit for your portfolio or not. And again, there will be follow-ons, there will be lower risk products and other things that we roll out through the rest of the year through this same type of structure, which, hallelujah, it's been a long time coming here. But all that to say, we want to be providing more value than we're taking. That's always our goal. Up to this point, some people have kind of felt the other way, which I can appreciate. I've been paying the AUM fees over there too. I've got my money in the funds. Haven't had, some of the dividends off those on a quarterly basis to cover my own fees. And so come out of pocket for that. But I will say that the peace of mind that I get for the assets being over there gives me, it's a lot of peace of mind is really what it comes down to. And so what's that worth to you? Some people are more than happy to cover, it's kind of like paying for your insurance every month. These assets are insured up to $100 million. They're segregated, bankruptcy remote, in your own account. You have full purview of them all the time. You can see them on chain, all the stuff. So I think it's a very fair price for what the service that we provide. And again, we're going to continue to add ways to be able to generate returns to more than cover the cost of participating in the services that we provide. Gen X Cryptos posted the new domain there, so you can check it out again. It's over at dag.com. All right, we got Zach. He says, I have an LLC for a home or commercial inspection business in Pennsylvania. Is there any way I can structure my XRP, XLM, and HBAR to that said business? I'm 25 and new to all this. I have 15,000 XRP. Don't tell people how much XRP you have, Zach, with your name on here. I'm going to take it down. Change your username on YouTube if you're.
Hacking into his cold wallet.
My wife says she's hacking your cold wallet right now. She's not. Again, to be 25 years old and have a business and have an allocation here, you're doing fantastic. Much better than I was doing at 25 years old. What I would say is it depends on the liability for your business. So if you're doing inspections on commercial and residential properties, I don't know that there's a ton of liability in that. And so you might consider, adding a corporate treasury to that company that is in digital assets. My concern there is if you are in litigation with somebody else and you become, in a situation where you owe them money and they could come after the assets held in the business, that would be a bad situation. So it's oftentimes better to segregate investments away from your operating business. You may even have the holding company that you structure, that the LLC, we set up as a holding company. It can own business interest in other companies. That can be where the corporate treasury is, and it can own equity in that underlying LLC that provides the service, so that if there is, some type of litigation or a situation that plays out where, you might end up losing assets, those are held away, and they're only going to be able to get the assets in the LLC that, they're suing. So, that's the one thing that I learned from a business law class that I still use today. I was about 15 years ago. So, I can't give you, legal advice. I'm not an attorney or an estate planner or a tax attorney. What I would say is most oftentimes we do see people set up a separate corporation to manage their digital assets and hold equity in other companies through a holding company that we structure in Wyoming. Doesn't matter where you live. You can even be international. If you do plan to have, business here in the U.S. Or move here to the U.S., it might benefit you to structure a company here in Wyoming. Wyoming gives you anonymity. The reason for that is, we're the, I've lost the word. We file it for you, so our name appears on that publicly, and then we have a registered agent that we file it through, so that their address appears on there. Your information's not on any public filings, and that's also one of the benefits of working with us on a go-forward basis. Is, as your agent, we operate on your behalf, and all of that information that if you tried to do it yourself, you would have to put on there. And then you would have public exposure. So you kind of lose the benefit of the Wyoming LLC if you're doing it yourself. The other piece is creditor protection. So in Wyoming, they have really strong charging order protection that they took from Nevada. The mob, went to Las Vegas and Nevada, and they set up some really interesting laws there that they brought over to Wyoming. So you get really strong creditor protection in Wyoming. And then the last piece is taxes, which you already know as a business owner. There's no way to mitigate all of your taxes, or no guaranteed way to be able to do that. But at least with a corporation, you do get the full breadth of the tax code to be able to offset your income to reduce your tax exposure. So, for all those reasons, that's why we work with people to structure an LLC in Wyoming in order to be able to hold their digital assets. There's a lot of good people out there doing it. We're just one of them. I would say that we are the most prominent. We've done more of these for, the XRP community and everybody in crypto than anybody else. Set up about 9,000 of these companies in Wyoming over the past 3 years to help people make sure this is done the right way. So over $1,500 if you do it with us, and then there is an ongoing monthly cost of $100 a month for the maintenance and all the other stuff that we do for you with meeting minutes, board resolutions, and all the other corporate documentation that is required in order to maintain your creditor protection. And again, that's over there at dag.com if you guys want to go check it out. And that is, again, one of the prerequisites in order to participate in the products that we're going to have. Jacob, he says, "Hey, Jake, how are you sure how much oil we really have? What if we have a lot more hidden away than the public knowledge, like enough to keep kicking the can for an extremely long time, as well as other countries too?" Look, I'm not going to, fight you on it. The government definitely does manipulate reports. I have probably different opinions on oil than a lot of people. I won't get into my tinfoil hat stuff here. But it's really about public perception and narrative at the end of the day. So whether it's true or not, as long as public perception is that it's low, you're going to see oil prices go up, right? There's supply and demand dynamics. And if the objective is to roll into this new financial system and get the adoption for this stuff, and there needs to be a catalyst in order for that to happen, that narrative is going to continue to be propagated and be the prevailing narrative in the market. So whether there's enough oil there or not really doesn't matter at the end of the day. It's really just, what are they trying to accomplish and how are they going to be able to get there? Young Slim, again, he says, "Can XRP hit high prices just from other countries using it at scale, even if the U.S. doesn't? Because it really looks like other countries are flipping the switch." Brad Garlinghouse did come out and say that there are 1,000+ switches, and they're getting ticked off the board here. We've got Nigeria that's issued full clarity on how digital assets are going to operate in their commodity, in their country. Russia, Japan. To your point, other countries are looking like they're going to adopt this pretty quickly. I do think Japan is going to front run the U.S. in the adoption of XRP. They now have access to be able to invest in ETFs over there in Japan. You've got Evernorth also listing in Japan on their stock exchange. It's really interesting to me. the legislation they just passed around taxation for crypto, and then also, like I said, the ability for them to be able to roll out financial products in that jurisdiction for spot trading of crypto in their financial markets is a big deal in order to be able to drive liquidity into it. So I would say that I think Japan in particular will front run the US, and the US will follow on behind them, and then the rest of the world. Rick, Mr. Johnson, good to see you, dude. He said, I am not David Schwartz. He sold his ETH for $1 a piece in Spaceballs. May the Schwartz be with you. Condolences to LT lady. Jesus. I'm not. Tay Ama. Rick, appreciate all the super chats, man. It's good to see you. Mo Benny, he says, hi from the UK. It is late there in the UK. I can't believe some of you guys stay up so late to watch this. I really do appreciate it. They say, if trillions eventually flows through XRP, how do you think that process starts? What's the first transaction of liquidity that begins that transition? I think they have to drive it to a high enough price through supply and demand dynamics on exchanges for there to be enough liquidity in the asset for them to start using it in order to be able to start facilitating trade and settlement. And then once we see that kick on to the network, that's what compounds and continues to push the flywheel on the price higher. I've used this analogy before in the mastermind. I don't know if I've said it here, but like there's these old tractors that use a shotgun shell to start them. There needs to be some combustion. There has to be something to get it going, and then the flywheel kicks in after that. That's kind of how I view XRP. So, I think there needs to be a supply shock similar to what we saw in 2017, 2018 when they escrowed, half of the supply for XRP. We saw that big run up from, half a penny all the way to $3.84. That's like I don't know what the percentage move on that is, but it's something crazy like 40,000%. I think that we could see something similar here. I think there'll be, some type of jump to 50 or $100 is kind of my guess. Again, it is an educated guess. It is not the end all be all. And then once the price is there, I think that they will start using it in order to be able to facilitate back-end settlement in the stock market, FX, commodities, Nostra Vostra accounts through SWIFT, all those things. And then that sustained volume over the network will continue to hold. It'll be like a price floor. And then as they move more real world assets on chain and there's more trading that happens and more volume across the network, that liquidity will have to go up in the asset. More demand for the asset will continue to drive the price higher. Storybook Song says, Trump sent a truth last night. I guess this is on Truth Social. The Jim Rickards video talking about the next 6 months where markets will go down 50%. Definitely must watch. A lot of my domino theory came from Jim. He has been an advisor to the U.S. government for a couple decades, maybe longer. And there was a video that he put out in 2014 where he literally described what is going on right now. And it's what gave me the foresight to say that the Strait of Hormuz would get shut down. He said that, one strategic choke point for oil would get shut down. And then, oil would be significantly higher. Energy prices in Japan would have to go up substantially. And then they would have to raise interest rates aggressively in order to be able to combat that and save their currency, which would cause the margin, that's been built up over decades to be, removed out of markets, treasuries to rotate out of U.S. treasuries into their own bonds, and then a potential collapse of our bond market if that were to take place and we didn't have demand domestically for those, because we would have to print the money to buy them. That's the whole point of the Clarity Act. That's the whole point of stablecoins. It is onshore domestic demand for treasuries here in the U.S. in order to be able to supplement that and stabilize the bond market when all this plays out. That is why they structured it this way. So, I will have to go check out that video because I'm sure that him and I jam on a lot of points. And I agree with him. I do think that we're in for 30 to 50% down in the stock market in the not too distant future with all this unwinding. CJ says, hey Jake, Carbon One member. Good to see you, dude. Appreciate you being part of the mastermind. Someone already in the growth and income funds. Very cool. Can you speak on the fundamental difference between the growth and income and the new yield product? They sound similar. So mainly the underlying structure. We are using another sub-advisor for this deal. Again, institutional partner that would be difficult to get access to for anybody that doesn't have $25 to $50 million. They have a proven track record at another custodian. The way that we've structured the funds is we had to pool the assets. We reflect that value off exchange. We get a line of margin against it, and that's what we trade in the strategies. This stays at Anchorage and doesn't get pooled, stays directly in your account in a single managed account structure. We get a line of credit at Anchorage over to the other side, their A1 desk, and then we're able to do the trades on that side with the other sub-advisor in order to be able to produce the returns that we're going to pass back as dividends on a monthly basis. So similar for sure, completely different structure. It also allows us to open this up to people that are not accredited, that are still suitable for the strategy, because that's one of the main things around those funds is you do need to be accredited in order to participate. Not everybody qualifies for that. So this democratizes access significantly. And again, it will be the first of many strategies that we roll out for this. And I've already told our team, I think there'll be a lot of people that want to rebalance their portfolios. If you are in those funds, I would go ahead and set up a meeting with your advisor in the next couple weeks. We should be, through all the details on this in that time frame. Give it a week or two, and they would be able to talk you through, the fundamental differences, how this is potentially inversely correlated or a different strategy to be able to put your XRP to work to earn returns on it, and how the mechanics of this work versus the funds. We will also have in the next week or so Q2 webinars for those that are participating in the funds to talk about the returns and the what's been made in both of those funds. Appreciate you being part of the mastermind and being a good client, and keeping your trust in us. Thank you. Jacob Hughes says, hey, Jake, how are you sure? Oh, we already did this one. We are an hour in. TikTok always gives me a little puzzle piece to move around when we get to this point. So I am going to cut off super chats here. If you give another super chat, I'm probably not going to get it tonight. You can email it, and our team will get it to me, and I'll answer it on the Wednesday live. But I'm going to go to the bottom of the chat and work my way back up. This person says redneck. Yeah, I'm a little burnt from this week. We were out in the sun the last couple days there in Orlando, and I definitely have a redneck.
No.
Kenny says, Jake, my man, retired PGA pro. Dude, Kenny, awesome. He says, I want to fly around and play great golf. Don't want to be in business. My best plan is to do this after price appreciation. You know what? I got a really cool deal for you, Kenny. I met a gentleman here recently that brokers private jets, and he has a vision where he wants to get cool people together and charter planes with all those people. You kind of split the cost with everybody, and you fly to really cool courses and then fly back same day. He also wants to play like Pinehurst and Torrey Pines, or it was another one, that everybody knows on the PGA. I'm sure you've played them if you're a retired pro. But like, two really cool courses in the same day because he's able to get the jet to be able to charter you there and back. So if you want to know more about that, I would join the mastermind. We'd love to have you in there. I'm not as good as you. I hit it fairly long. My handicap's probably, I don't know. I did shoot the best round of my life the other day. I haven't even talked about this. I shot 67 a couple weekends ago, about a month ago now. And, it's a course that I play all the time. It's not a high rating. I think, if you're scratched from the tips, I think it's rated at like 68. So when I was in high school, I was a +4. I was decent in high school. Played with Jordan Spieth. I played with Scotty Scheffler here in Dallas, both when they were young. I'm a little bit older than both of them, and I got to watch them crush everybody on junior tours. So anyway, I like golf. I would love to fly around with you and play. Carrie Yost. Hey, ma'am. Or sir, not sure. I've known some guys named Carrie. I can't see your picture. They say, is Clarity absolutely necessary for XRP to become a reserve currency recognized by the U.S.? Nope. Sure or not. BIS would give it that designation, which is the Bank of International Settlements. Let's see here. Scrolling back up in the chat. KT Baby, good to see you, ma'am. She says, does Trump possibly cancel recess, making you 70-30? I'd still be 90-10. Even if he canceled the recess, I'd still be 90-10. And the reason for that is there's just a lot of constraints around this getting passed. He could force them to vote on it. That doesn't mean that they're going to pass it. And they've still got other things that take precedent before the Clarity Act, apparently, both with the Russia sanctions and with the SAVE Act. Young Slim says, you finally said my name right. Well, it's all undulated with the letters, man. You got me messed up. I appreciate the super chat and appreciate you taking the time out to be on here. Shmoopus, good to see you. He says, Jake, any knowledge or experience on benefit or not of psychedelic therapy? Oh, wow. Okay. Out of left field. I will take it, though. I appreciate the question. Microdosing LSD or mushrooms, again, I'm also not a doctor, so don't take anything I say as medical advice. I have some anecdotal experience with certain pharmaceuticals over my lifetime. I've talked to many people that have done ayahuasca and DMT and some of those other things. And, some of them have said it's been fantastic. It completely changed their life. It, rewired their brain and helped them get through a lot of trauma. I've seen some other people that it did the opposite for. So I think that, we don't know enough about that yet. I mean, maybe the CIA does, right? Like they were microdosing LSD and all these other chemicals back in the 60s. So they probably have all that information. But I think that it can be beneficial for the right person under the right circumstance, under medical supervision would be my 2 cents on it. It's not something that I have experimented with personally.
Yes.
My wife says yet in the background. Yeah, maybe, we'll give it a go. Crypto Dingoes, down under. It says, what do you think about Article 589 of the Civil Code of Japan? This number doesn't seem like a coincidence anymore. It's crazy. I mean, you've got the COMEX rule, 589. You've got the Epstein documents, 589. 589 can mean a lot of things. If you want to get a little woo-woo for a second, if you add it up, it equals 22. If you multiply 5 times 8 times 9, it's 360 or 360 degrees in a circle. If you look in the tarot, the first and last card of the World and the Fool, I think, this is the dawn of a new era. And that's why you're continuing to see that number pop up over and over and over again. So like completion of a cycle, basically. And I'm with you. It seems like a simulation that we're living in. John, Mr. Sanders says, decent. You recommended a few days ago. I have found XRPL, not XRP. Please clarify if XRP is in the correct place. The XRPL is XRP. So that's the network that you're going to be using in order to be able to hold or create a wallet on that cold wallet. And that is not a token itself. So that would be the network that you would be using to send the XRP to that cold wallet. That is correct. No, No. Sorry, going back through the chat here, it always bumps me around. Here we go. We got Jana, Miss Newburn. She says, Beyond Work Mastermind, awesome. Glad to have you as part of the group. She says, really grateful for the community and everything that you guys are doing. Got my LLC with Laughlin last July. Wasn't advised by Laughlin very well. Ended up with multi-member LLC. Can I still become a DAG client? Do I need to form a new LLC? So we will transition your old LLC that's a multi-member to a single member. It takes like 3 documents we have to file in order to be able to do that. I will say that it's on our roadmap. It is not a significant priority for us at this time, just with the limited resources and bandwidth that we have. Again, rolling out these other products, we're trying to stay on the front end of a lot of different things. Our team will set you a new one up at a discounted rate if you would like to do that, or they will work with you over the next few months, maybe a little bit longer, in order to be able to transition your multi-member to a single member if you want to administer that through the application that we have over there at the DAG app. So appreciate your patience on that. I know that's Laughlin did a lot of things that I'm not overly happy about, but it's in the past. We do the best we can with what we got, and we do want to make sure that we take care of our clients. So appreciate you bringing it to my attention. It's on a roadmap. If you want to reach out, our team would be happy to help you one way or the other. Are we there yet? 86. They say, hey, Jake, hope all is well. If the BOJ does decide to kick the can, it will have to be one heck of a kick at the next meeting until September 17th. The dang can should look like a pancake now. Please make it stop. I'm with you. I don't think there's much can left to kick. Like they're at the point of, and they've even said this, they have to do something now. So I anticipate that they're not going to be kicking the can at this meeting. We will find out Wednesday, Thursday this week. Johnny, Bag of Donuts. He says, Jake in a tour, Jake and Ader. 2 random questions. What clubs do you play, woods and irons? I'm Titleist across my whole bag. I got the new, what are they, 504s? No, that's the driver. I have a 504 on the driver. Woods are old Titleist. I can't think of the number. They're from back when I played in high school. They still work fine. And then irons that I have, I think I got the 500T. Anyway, they're a higher launch. They go a little bit further. What's wild is like all the irons today are 5 degrees forward from what they were when I played in high school. So I hit them like 15, I hit them about 40 yards further. Sometimes some of them 50 yards further than I did in high school, but I'm about 60 pounds heavier than I was in high school too. Putter is Vokey's wedges. That's the Titleist putter also. I can't think of the name, that higher end putter. But yeah, Titleist across the board. I've played with Nike. I've played with Mizuno's. I've played with TaylorMade's. Titleist has always just been the best for my swing. Thoughts on carnivore diet, short-term versus long-term? Ooh. So any restrictive diet can cause issues if you're using it for an extended period of time. Again, I'm not a health professional either, not a doctor. This is just anecdotal evidence from dieting multiple people and myself. Carnivore can be good for a short period of time in order to be able to reestablish insulin sensitivity. If you remove carbohydrates from your diet and go keto, which is effectively what carnivore is, it can be really good at reducing body fat, increasing insulin sensitivity, removing diabetes, removing inflation. If you have gut problems, it can also be, a good solution for short duration in order to be able to help heal your gut. The problem over the long term is, one, you become deficient in a lot of micronutrients. that you would get from carbohydrates or other sources. So if you're not eating the full animal, when people talk about going carnivore, they tend to eat just muscle meat and they're not eating organs, which sounds gross, but that is where the majority of the nutrients in an animal are. Eyes, brain, heart, kidneys, other stuff. Liver, I would include, if you are going to go real hardcore carnivore for a longer period of time, you should absolutely be including those types of meats in there alongside the muscle meat that you're eating. If you're doing keto or carnivore for an extended period of time, you're going to have a spike in SHBG, which is sex hormone binding globulin. We actually just had a guy in the mastermind talking about all the benefits of supplementation with testosterone and a lot of the other pharmaceuticals that are out there, including peptides, prohormones, those types of things. He is a medical professional. He owns a business. He's registered. It's a legitimate deal. And he's coached over 20,000 people on their hormone profiles, which is primarily what causes, it's the base, it's the crux of what causes people's problems is your hormones. The same way that we talk about, financial literacy and all the other stuff with the financial system and all these, levers with interest rates and M2 money supply and all the stuff that they have. If they just went back to a gold backed currency, pretty much fixes everything. Hormones are like that for your body. So if you can get those right, then everything else works pretty much like it's supposed to, right? Like when you were in your teens and your 20s. So, a lot of people will try this workout regimen or they'll try this diet and they'll say, well, it didn't work for me. Most of the time because your hormones are out of whack to begin with, and you're not going to be successful with really anything until that's in place. So if you want to learn more about that, go check it out, the mastermind. That's my thoughts on carnivore. Kind of circling back to the SHBG comment. There was many people that I coached that were on keto for an extended period of time and they couldn't gain muscle. They stayed kind of skinny fat.
Their breath stunk.
Their breath stinks. You kind of smell acidic. If you don't have a bunch of free tea floating around because it's bound up with SHBG, you're not going to get the results that you're looking for. So when I would diet people, I would do intermittent fasting, which is like a 24-hour fast. Actually between 20 to 24 hours, you actually get an uptick in your metabolism. Norepinephrine and adrenaline kick in, and it actually bumps your metabolism up. If you fast longer than that, you start to lose your metabolic rate because your body's conserving energy. So if you want to maintain muscle tissue, that's kind of the extent of a fast that I would do. And I would have them do that every other day. I would have them eat a little bit more on the days that they were eating, on the days that they were training. Primarily keto and protein heavy, but they would still have some carbohydrate like a sweet potato or a banana or an apple around their workout, because you want to maintain metabolic flexibility. You want your body to be able to utilize carbohydrates and fats for energy. And if you are strictly one or the other for an extended period of time, it will disrupt your ability to use the other, macronutrient. All right. Really good questions, by the way. Appreciate people, coming out of left field with some stuff. Just Z2 says, hey, Jake, would you recommend creating an LLC now before price appreciation with hypothetically 50,000 portfolio amount, or wait till after price appreciation? If you have $50,000 to $80,000 or 50 to 80,000 XRP in your portfolio, I think that's where the cost of benefit makes the most sense to go ahead and establish an LLC now. And that's contingent on your pace at which you think things are going to appreciate. If you think it's going to be a slower roll and it's going to escalate up to like $10 and then $20 and then $40, and it's going to take a lot longer and it's going to be a slow grow like Solana or some of these other digital assets have been, then sure, you can wait. If you think it's going to be a big jump in a short period of time, which is what I think, then that is why, that's around the area where I think the cost of benefit makes the most sense versus, waiting till later on. But again, up to you. It's very dependent on what you see happening in the market, how you think it's going to play out, whether you should be proactive or reactive. Chris, Mr. Bennett, He says, with Uphold doing layoffs, should people still have hope of onboarding through DAG app or move on? No BS. Let the people know. We know you have our best interest at heart. I do. As far as I'm aware, those layoffs have not affected anything that we've been working on with them. They have staffed up on the stuff that we're working on in order to be able to get more across the line and streamline that process and implement new systems and procedures to actually make that scalable. I believe it was mostly international people that they have laid off. I could be wrong about that, but that's what I thought I heard. So as far as I'm aware, it has no implications for us and our ability to onboard. It has been a very slow, arduous, painful at this point process. I appreciate people's patience and grace. I really can't even, people have been very nice up to this point. So we are working on it. We meet with them literally every single day on it, and they are going to be implementing something in the next 30 days to streamline that so that we no longer have this issue. All right. XR Pisces. Hey, a little bit of astrology. They say, yo, Jake and the Tea Lady, can my existing DAG LLC formed under the integration with Uphold and the DAG app be used or adapted for Anchorage? Yeah, no problem. I hold the minimum required of XRP to be part of the yield product. Perfect. Yeah, they can use the same LLC and onboard you over there. They just do the KYB on that side. Streamlined, easy, makes it super simple. If you formed it with us, we have your documentation. Should be a super streamlined process and easy. Might take 24, 48 hours to get your account up over there. So if you want to go over there to dag.com and go to the wealth section and then, click the contact us form, fill that out, pay the $1,000 onboarding fee, and then you're going to be off to the races and in position to participate in that product. Kingdom Connected. Cool name. And he's even got the 777. He says, evening, Jake. How's everything with Uphold? My coworker has his Ascent frozen twice now with no real explanation or even answer. Customer service stinks. I've had that conversation with our counterparties over there. Unfortunately, I don't have anybody on the compliance side that I have a direct line of communication with. It's just people on the sales side. My account had the same thing happen to me years ago with Uphold. So, and that's the reason we partnered with them. We have oversight on our instance with them. We still get the benefit of using all of their stuff and all of the great stuff that they have. But we have a little bit more say so on our side versus if it's with them, I don't have any pull. I can't really do anything. So I think they have a really good product. I think they have a great platform. I think that they, I applaud them for keeping XRP on their platform during the whole time of the lawsuit. They've done a lot of great things. They've got a lot of it right. But I will say that is a common concern or constructive criticism that I get from many of our clients that hold assets there is their account's been frozen with no real recourse or way to do anything about it. And, like I said, I've beat on that door a few times and it hasn't really led anywhere, unfortunately. If you work with us, if you're holding your assets at Anchorage, if you're holding stuff on the DAG app, we can help you outside of that circumstance. I have contacts that I can touch point with, but I don't have any pull on getting accounts reinstated or unfrozen. Michael Sloan says, hey man, watch your interview with Lewis, our CIO, if you guys didn't know. He said, would he be bullish on a BlackRock ETF this year? Is 2026 still the year? Dude, I need some positivity. 2026 is still the year for institutional adoption at scale for XRP and the XRP ledger. BlackRock's at the table. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but apparently they're advocating for the Clarity Act to get passed as of today. Like I said earlier in the broadcast, I think a lot of people are, they want public perception to believe that they are pro-crypto, and being pro-crypto means being, advocating for the Clarity Act. When in reality, I don't think they care a whole lot. I think that they know that XRP is going to be the thing. Personally, again, this is just my opinion, and so I don't think that they really need the Clarity Act. I think that once there's enough liquidity there, and even David Schwartz has said this. He said the main opposition at this point for the use of XRP isn't clarity, it isn't regulation, it's liquidity in the asset and the volatility of the asset. So as soon as it is a high stable value, we're going to see use at scale for XRP. Jeremy, Mr. Wright, good to see you, dude. He says, hey, Jake, my portfolio, XRP, HBAR, Solana, and XLM. This is long-term. Would you add anything? I mean, those are all, I think, good assets personally. I don't hold anything besides XRP. I have a little bit of hash. So, if I had to say something else to look at, I'm not saying to invest in it. Hash, which is the token on Provenance's blockchain, super cheap, under a penny, I think, right now. So I think I bought mine at like 2 cents, a little over 2 cents is where I bought mine at. I've just kind of held it a couple $1,000. It's a flyer for me. It is definitely a long-term hold. I think that there'll be tokenization of insurance, mortgage-backed securities. I think that they'll establish staking for that token. I think Mike Cagney, what he's doing over there with Figure is very interesting and awesome, and advocating for the use of that blockchain and that token. So, he built SoFi, exited, built Figure, took that public. Success leaves clues, right? So if he's involved with that, it gives me a lot of confidence that it's going to do well. So that would be the only other one. I mean, there's XDC, there's Ondo, Quant, Propto, Proppy. There's a lot of other good assets out there. I will say that, I was fairly diversified in 20 and 21. I had 13 positions. Looking back, I think I took too many positions. I could have gone a little bit deeper on maybe 5 to 8 positions and probably done a little bit better than I did, even though I did pretty well. Because some of those flopped, right? Some of them aren't even around anymore. But that's the other one. Hash is the other one that's still under a penny. It reminds me of XDC when I bought it at 3/100 of a penny. It's not available on exchanges. You kind of have to, go around your butt to get it a little bit. But that's also why it's undervalued, and there's an asymmetric bet there. So go do some research, make your own decisions. Can't give you financial advice. But that would be, my 2 cents on it. This person, good to see you. They say, what is your honest opinion on brokerage Caleb Brown? Every XRP influencer seems to be pushing them hard. No comment. Yeah, Soldier says, hey, Jake, you spoke about an AI coin that will be one of the top picks. XXXST coin launched, and it will be Amazon style platform for AI. Thoughts on it? Haven't done any research. I will go check it out. Yeah, I don't remember who asked me that, but they said to name like the top 7 tokens in 2030 or something. And I threw out, 4 or 5 that are around today, but I think 2 of them will be in there that may not even exist yet or are AI driven stuff, because, with AI agents and payments and everything that's being built out there, I think that economy is going to be significantly larger than the economy we currently have today, that's run by humans. And so that's why I anticipate. So if there's a platform play with a token that, does the, API connections or token arbitrage or other stuff, and it's a marketplace for that for AI, probably a lot of upside there. There will be a winner. I can't pick which one it is, but I'll have to go do some research on the XST token. It's Teddy. Good to see you. He says, can IRA holders holding XRP eventually participate in the yield product? What happens when price appreciation happens? There will likely be a gap in yield. How about AUM? How will AUM be addressed? So we already have a product for IRAs. If you have an IRA, with another provider and you want to migrate it over and you want to earn returns on your XRP and compound your XRP in cash inside that IRA account. We partnered with Arch Public in order to be able to develop a proprietary strategy that nobody else has out there. That strategy has been performing very well over the past 3-4 months since we've had it live. So you can ask our advisors over there about that, but we already have a product in order to be able to generate additional returns on your XRP inside of an IRA. We already did that one for CJ. So I'm going to go all the way to the bottom and work my way back up a little bit. I did tell you guys I'd hang out about an hour and a half, and we are already at that point. Time flies when I'm on here. You guys ask great questions. I appreciate people, coming with fitness and golf and some other stuff that's outside of the scope of the normal conversation. It makes it fun. I know you guys come here for the macro and the financial education, business resources, and talking about taxes and estate planning and all of that. And again, I'm happy to jam on all of that all the time. But it's nice to have, Scotty Cameron. There you go. That's the title of Sputter. All right. Appreciate you, Rick. Well, you know what? I got one more and then we'll wrap it up here. We got Steve. He says, is the yield paid on the whole account value? Like if I have XRP, HBAR, XLM in the account, or is it only the value of XRP? Currently, this product is only available or will only be available for XRP. But what I will say is this strategy and the way that this infrastructure works, it opens it up to be able to use other assets in a similar type of product. We have the most demand for XRP currently, so that's why we're starting here. But over the long term, the other piece is like we get a 50% line of credit at Anchorage against the XRP. So to be able to pay 3 to 5% on it, which is the targeted return, I think is great, with only being able to leverage half that value over there. With XLM and HBAR and a lot of the other ones, they won't even issue a line of credit against it. And if they did, it's at like 10 or 20% LTV. You'd have to be doing something very risky with that in order to be able to generate even a small return. And so the juice isn't quite worth the squeeze. Our number one rule is don't lose XRP or don't lose digital assets. And this rule number 2 is refer to rule number 1. So we're always going to be a bit more conservative on that side. There's always going to be stuff that's out there in the market that's DeFi, that's super high end risk, and there will be people that participate in that. We want to understand those risks. We want to quantify them. We want to make sure that there's some guardrails and safety net around that, and that we can be able to communicate with clients around the risks and how it's structured and why it's compliant and how it works. So we're going to be a little bit later to the game than DeFi, but we will be implementing those things, especially once we get liquidity pools on the XRPL and borrow lend and all of that here in the near future. That's definitely on our immediate roadmap. So for the other assets, it'll take a little bit longer. We can custody XLM, we can custody HBAR, we can custody XDC. I think that they may have staking for HBAR and XDC in the not too distant future. I'm hoping, by Q1 of 27. That sounds like a long time, and it kind of is, but that's the reality of where the market's at. And so no is the answer. It's strictly for XRP as of today, but we'll open the pathway to those other ones. And yeah, that'll do it. Again, appreciate you guys taking time out of your Monday night to come hang out with me and ask great questions. Really excited about the yield product. Go over there to dag.com. Go to the contact us form on the wealth page. Talk to an advisor. See if it's a good fit for you. We'll continue to bring you guys more products and solutions that I think, we build all these things selfishly. Like I want all this stuff and I want it done a specific way. And again, none of this is possible without you guys wanting to participate with us and wanting the same thing. So I appreciate every one of our clients, everybody that comes onto the channels, all the support, everything that you guys have. It means the world. I feel truly blessed and grateful for the opportunity to put something together to help serve the broader community. And if you want to be part of the broader community that we have, it's over there at beyondbroke.com. You can use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, And then MO, like Mary Oscar, gets you the first month for $2. They're in Carbon One or Social. We do have the event this week on Thursday. If you're going to be in Atlanta or around that area and want to come hang out with cool people, you can get registered for that event. We still have room, and we'll continue to roll out really cool things over there for that community. And we're going to be locking it down on the other side of price appreciation, on the other side of a $10 XRP. It is an invite only, much higher price group. So if you want to go ahead and get in and make sure that you just try it out. It's month to month, no contract. You can cancel at any time. But we do have over 17,000 people there in the community that continue to stay and get value. So I think that kind of speaks to the benefits of being part of it. With that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it. Again, appreciate y'all taking time out of your Monday to come hang out with me. We'll see you guys on Wednesday. God bless. We'll see you on the next one.